Hey everybody, welcome to Cut, Transform, Glue, and to the 5th episode of the Sniper Spaceship build. In the last video, I've built the frame, the V-shaped arm, using some 3D printed pieces and some aluminum bars, and now we're gonna move on to the build. Now let me just make a recap. This is the 5th video of the build series. There are 4 others that came before that, and if you haven't seen that, I really suggest you do that, because there are some nice content about every piece created in great detail. Okay, so now let's get to the video. Now in this video I'm gonna cover up the structures that I've created using the 3D printed pieces, because I don't want that to be seen. I'm also gonna create the connection in between the V-shaped arm, which is like right now it's more like an Y-shaped arm, and I'm gonna create the pieces that connect the Y-shaped arm to the frame that holds the sniper. I know some of you might be wondering, why don't I use more 3D printed pieces to cover these pieces right here, the aluminum bars? And the thing is that 3D printing, it takes a lot of time, and sometimes just styrene, just some strips of styrene, is way faster than the 3D printing. So this is what I'm doing now. I'm using some cut pieces of styrene to cover the aluminum bars and to make the surface like flat so that I can put more stuff onto. Like these pieces right here, which are the connection in between the arm, the V-shaped or Y-shaped arm in the back, to the frame that holds the body of the sniper spaceship. To be honest, the thing that holds the sniper and all the other interesting parts of it. Now I'm really glad that I took some rubber mold out of these pieces, because the other ones, they had to be thrown away with the previous wooden frame. But as I did a rubber mold out of it, I just made some 4 more copies of it, and now I can like just work with that for the 3D printed frame. Now the connections pieces are glued together with some styrene and actually some screws to make it really secure. I'm gluing that to the Y-shaped frame, and yeah, the connection is really strong. It can really hold the weight of the middle of the spaceship. And to be honest, every time that I put all the pieces of my sniper spaceship together and I can really hold it with my hands, I'm really glad that I decided to make this 3D printed frame. It's really strong. Now I don't know if you can see, but there are 2 marked holes on the frame. Those holes cannot be covered, because the screw that goes on it, they will like be used on the final assembly of the spaceship. So I'm gonna just cover the other ones using some laser cut MDF. So I first matched the angles from the arms to the wings of the spaceship, and now I'm using some CA glue to keep those in place. And I'm using some MDF right here instead of using styrene, just because I had those pieces like pre-cut on a size that really matched the wings, because otherwise I would use some styrene. Now I have to provide myself some structure here in the back so that I can put like the engine further on the process. So I'm just gonna create a big rectangular box here in the back so that I have like a good real estate to put all the other structures from the back of the spaceship in the future. And the challenge here is to keep things aligned and perpendicular. Okay, so as you can see, things are really covered up. I have some pieces of styrene and some pieces of MDF, and to be honest, it's quite confusing, so I just throw a coat of primer to better see that, and I can move on to the process. Now, if there's one piece that since it's born I was not 100% on, is that one over here, the CPU. I think it's the CPU of the spaceship. I really don't like its shape. It fits nicely onto the top of the other piece, but I'm not sure about its design, so I'm gonna change it. And at this point, I also decided to change how things are going together right here. So I'm gonna remove the tiny fake Lego pieces and put a bolt through the whole thing. And the well bond glue did a good job in putting those pieces together, so it is like really hard to remove. Now I'm just going to sand the residue that was left from those pieces. And then out of camera I put a hole, and now here's the thing. A bolt comes down from the rails of the sniper through the frame, and now it is going all the way through to the top, so that I can put like a nut on the top and keep things really secure. And now I've accidentally created a nice hat so that my spaceship looks classy. Now, jokes aside, the spaceship is getting every time more complex when it comes to the assembly, and this piece only made it like harder and more complex. But at the end of the day, the most important thing right here is to create something that can really hold its weight. I have to remind myself all the time in the process that this is a spaceship, and I don't want to put this on a base standing still. I want this to be floating, either by some wires in the top or some steel bars on the bottom. I really want it to be floating in a nice pose. So it is key to create a piece that can hold its own weight. So this is why I'm putting too much attention when it comes to the assembly, and I'm always trying to make the joints better and stronger. Now, as you can see, I've put a second tiny hat here in the back, and this is just to create another joint point, because at this point I decided to create a third arm that will go from this middle piece to the back of the ship to really make it strong. So from those measurements that you just saw me taking, I made this piece right here. It will connect to these two pins, to these two tiny heads, and make a joint point for a third arm that will go to the back of the ship. Now again, by using some laser cut MDF pieces, I'm creating the structure like to create like an axis so that this third arm could like hang on to. And by using like 3 identical pieces of MDF, I've created this piece right here, and I'll put a bolt through it onto the third arm. That piece was glued to this other piece right here, the 2 hole joints to the middle of the spaceship, and now I just gotta cover that. I did that using some styrene, and yeah, this is the piece, and now I just have to create the arm, the third arm that will go to the back of the spaceship. And to help me in this process, I'm always using like the bolts to align the pieces together before I glued anything to that. Now MDF and plexiglass with CA glue works super good, so just be careful to not put your finger on the middle of it and glue it to the piece. But yeah, MDF and CA glue works really well together. So yeah, here's the joint point from that piece to the third arm, and I'm just gonna put some more leftover laser cut MDF pieces to create a nice looking arm. I've had those laser cut leftovers for a long time. Just as a challenge, let me see if any of you can recognize what is the other project that I've used those on. Leave me a comment. So as I always do, I did some cuts, some sanding, and I started combining different laser cut pieces to make the arm look interesting. Now, as I also often do, I decided to change things from my design. So I decided to move that joint point to the front. So I'm gonna create a secondary hole to join the previous piece right here in the middle, and then go back to the back of the ship. So yeah, as you can see, the joint point moved from that piece to the front, so that I can like connect it to the middle frame, and now I have a secondary hole connecting it to that middle piece, and that will go to the back of the ship. To make that, I'm using this piece right here, which came from a dead computer, and it perfectly fits my design, the laser cut MDF pieces. So I'm using that to extend the arm to the back of the ship. I did some work off camera, and this is the result. So this right here is the piece that I think encompasses all of the techniques that I like to use. I have laser cut acrylic pieces, some laser cut MDF, some gribblies like this one right here in the middle, and also some 3D printed pieces. Now the arm is fully done, and it is connecting the back of the ship to the front, to that middle piece that holds the frame and supports the sniper. And now I want to work on this angle right here. Now the goal right here is to make the V-shaped arm more interesting, and I want to create some air vents on it. To do that, I'm using this piece right here, which I found in my collection of gribblies. Now this black piece, it came from a laser printer toner from the insides of it. Yeah, but as you can see, I only have one of those, and the amount of segments it has, it is an odd number. So again, I'm making it like asymmetrical. I'm gonna keep a bigger piece on the bigger wing size, and the smaller on the smaller wing. And to attach that, again, I'm using some CA glue. And moving on, creating a structure for it, I'm using some styrene and some weld bond glue. And to cover the hole that was left by the lack of size from that black piece, I used some laser cut MDF. And then I did some sanding, and now the laser cut MDF pieces matches the angles in between the wings and the sniper spaceship. Things were a bit empty right here, so I added some other laser cut pieces to make it more interesting and like give me like the opportunity to hang more stuff onto it. And then I moved on to the back right here. So now the plan right here was to follow the angles of the air vents and make a nice curve to the back of the ship. This is something that was like in my concept art. So I took a bunch of measurements, and then I printed some pieces, and then I glued it with some CA glue, and the result was super nice. It fit perfectly the back of the ship. The only problem that I'm having right now is that this piece right here it looks not good with the back of the ship with those blue pieces. So I'm changing that like for the third or fourth time. So again, by taking a bunch of measurements and by sketching on the surface of the spaceship, I came up with some nice shape, and I've printed some pieces to remake that middle piece that connects to the arm, to the central arm. Okay, so now this tiny piece right here screws onto the central bolt that puts everything together, and over it comes this piece right here, which I sketched on the surface of the spaceship and then I printed. And yeah, on the middle of it there's a slot where the new connection to the central arm will be glued. And this is the result with the central arm, and yeah, it is doing a nice job of keeping everything together and like adding some structure to the central piece, which will hold the entire weight of the sniper itself. So yeah, it is a nice addition to the design. It looks good and make everything more sturdier and stronger. Now I still have to make some work right here on the back, and before I do that I need to decide where the angels go, if I want them to be like on the wings or if I want it to be like central in the back of the ship. But yeah, then I just primed the whole thing to kind of see where this was going, and this is the end of this video right here. And in the next one I'm gonna move on to the back of the V-shaped arm, and then I'm gonna cover and add some details to the frame, the aluminum frame that holds the segments of the wings together. If you watched this far, thank you so much for that. Don't forget to like the video if you like the content, and leave me a comment and I'll be happy to answer that. If you want to further support this channel, I have a Patreon account where you can like donate me monthly, and I also have a Coffee account for one-time donations only. Both links to those platforms are on the description box, and if you can support me, please go there, because that type of support really helps the channel and helps me like keep going and growing. But if you can't, no big deal. Let's keep hanging out here on YouTube, leave me a comment, and yeah. But as always, thanks for watching.